Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Scott Luton, Greg White with you here on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's live stream. Gregory, how we doing?
We're doing okay. I can see that using a different camera did not help. So we might
Well, you
be a
know what?
little I might be a little bit Terminator-ish today. So the
Well,
island
hey,
of misfit toys strikes again.
Murphy's Law, I'll tell you, is live and well, especially with live programming, live remote programming. But hey, there's blue skies ahead because we're going to get it fixed and we're going to have Greg in full 4D, 5D, metaverse, whatever, very, very soon. And Greg, I see you've got your Kansas City Chiefs apparel ready for the season.
It's ready for the season. Yeah, actually first golly, what is it? The 13th. Our first preseason game against the Chicago Bears in
Man,
Chicago.
Chicago. All right.
The
Well,
Bears.
hey, one of the best SNL acts skits of all time. Hey, football is upon us, but today, Greg, speaking of subjects and important subjects upon us, we're talking sustainability, especially when it comes to moving freight. Where are we
Yep.
today? Where are we headed? We'll be posing all these questions and more to an industry leader that is on the move and is doing a lot of innovative work in global supply chain. Greg, you ready for this?
I am ready that we've got some interesting connections here,
There is.
right?
Blessed
Yeah.
be the ties
Thought
that
about that.
bind.
Yeah.
But folks, we're going to say hello to a few folks in just a minute. Hey, we want to hear from you too. So feel free to take some time over the next hour or so. Drop your comments in. We're glad to have you here. We're going to try to work those comments in as we have our chat with our guest, and we'd love to hear from you. So, speaking of, before we bring on our guest here in just a second, let's say hello to a few folks, Greg. Hey, one of our old time faves is back with us, Benjamin Goldklang. Do you remember Benjamin, Greg?
Wow. Yeah. Yes. Traveling from Texas to New York, Connecticut,
I,
up there.
I think I think you're right. I want to say Benjamin was a proud product of the UGA supply chain program, if I'm right, Benjamin. And he has since moved into supply chain roles, doing big things. So great to have you here with us today, Benjamin.
Give us your
Jonathan,
recent history and current location.
that's right. Oh, gosh. Jonathan, great to have you back. The pride of Louisiana. And doing a lot of good planning work out there in global supply chain. Great to see you. Stephanie Benedetto via LinkedIn. Good morning, good afternoon. Hey, let us know, Stephanie, where you're tuned in from. We'd love to connect the dots. Remember Tempest, Greg from Texas.
We got a lot of people tuning back in, don't we?
That's right. Do you remember what we asked her about her
Or
first name?
sounding off, at least. Maybe they're always tuned in. But sorry, say that again.
Tempest, named after Tempest, I want to say Bledsoe from The Cosby Show. Do you remember that on an earlier live
Really?
stream? Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
great to have you back with us, Tempest.
That was
From
Rudy, right? Tempest was Rudy. Is that
no,
correct?
Tempest was the middle child. Um, Vanessa, I can't remember.
Oh,
Gosh, the
okay. I
'80s.
bet Tempest can tell us.
Vanessa, Amanda weighed in. Thank you, Amanda.
Okay.
So that is right. So great to see you, Tempest. Catherine, of course, and Amanda and Clay, all part of the production team, helping to make it happen. Who is ready to learn about sustainability? Catherine raises her hand. Nice little emoji action there. Shelly Phillips is back with us. Good morning from colorful Colorado via LinkedIn. Shelly, great to have you back. Mike tuned in from Lufkin, Texas. Ever been to Lufkin, Texas, Greg?
I don't know. I don't know
That
where it is.
that wasn't.
A lot of those states in the Midwest and the Southwest have, they have tons of tiny towns. You go through, get into the town, I don't know if it's attached or if it's in Boondocks.
Yep.
Mike know if he's from Kentucky. He'll know that term.
Well, so maybe Lufkin wasn't one of those small towns that we drove the supply chain now van through a couple years back. But
Give us an idea where that is, Mike.
that's right. Mike,
Or
great to have you
somebody,
here.
right? Google Maps it.
Stephen Bush is back with us, ready for Friday. That's for sure. Hey, you're a day early. Hopefully Friday won't be late. No late
Let's say
deliveries.
better to be prepared. This is supply chain, right? Better to be prepared. Rep in
Max is back.
Heidelberg, both the town and the company. By the
That's
way.
right.
See,
Hey, Max is back with us from Mexico via LinkedIn. Great to see you, Max. Looking forward to your take here today And finally, we can't hit everybody, but Marlowe's tuned in from Dallas, Texas. And Benjamin is confirming from Georgia to now New York City. How about that? Benjamin, great to have you here today.
Down on the farm. Yeah.
So welcome, everybody. We were looking forward to your comments throughout our conversation here today. We got a great one teed up with a great guest. We've enjoyed the pre-show conversation. So, Greg, with no further ado, I'm going to welcome in John Rattay, Chief Commercial Officer with Redwood Logistics. John, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Scott?
Doing great to see you. Great to see you.
Yeah, welcome aboard.
We enjoyed our pre-show conversation. You're in beautiful Arizona, I believe.
I am.
Enjoyed talking a little bit of sports, a little bit of supply chain, you name it, in the pre-show. But as we launch this conversation, Greg and John, we've got a special holiday to acknowledge. It's India Pale Ale Day across the globe today. Who would have thunk? Had no idea. So I want to ask you both, starting with John. John, what's your favorite beer or adult beverage as we look to celebrate, do the right thing and celebrate today's holiday?
I appreciate you giving me a little bit of a heads up in the pre-call on this one. It's 9 a.m. in the morning.
Right.
So it's not the first thing on my mind, which, as we mentioned, is a good thing. But our friends in Europe and other time zones might be a little bit more applicable. I would say a couple probably come to mind, and it may be more location-based. I lived in Chicago for 4.5 years.
Nice.
Goose Island is a pretty strong brewery that's out there in the heart of Chicago. If you go right around the lake, you have Founders. Founders has some pretty strong options from a brewery perspective. And then obviously being from Arizona now, Four Peaks is definitely one that comes to mind. So got to get a little shout out, probably more location based than anything.
Man, John, I love Greg. I love how he kind of took us on like a brewery tour right there. Huh? All right. So we've got a little bit of a connection issue that happens.
That's all right.
Catherine, let's drop Greg out of the stream really quick. And once we get him back, we'll bring him back. So John, I love the brewery tour you just took us on. We've got a variety of breweries here in Georgia. Red Hare Brewery comes to mind, kind of on the northwest side of town. Terrapin in Athens, Georgia. If you ever heard of that one, John.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm going to mess the biggest one here, craft beer. It's right off the connector, right off 85. Amanda, you might have to help me out. And they will. So I want to say 411, but that's not it. So we'll come back to that. It's still early. It's early for beer, isn't it, John?
It's early. It is. It's early, but it's always good to tie in an experience in that way to something local.
That is right. Well, hey, Mike Aver saves the day. 420. Yes, 420.
420.
Sweetwater. Sweetwater Breweries, who I was trying to think of. So thank you very much, Catherine and Michael. Yes, Clay, we're talking beer and sustainability and supply chain all today. Sandra, great to have you here from Ghana via LinkedIn. Looking forward to your perspective here today. Cecil's back. Sushil tuned in from Portsmouth, UK. Great to have you here, Sushil. Okay, so John, what I want to do, we've covered some of the bases here, right? We've talked beer, right? It's a big checkbox. So moving right along, what I want to do is kind of level set a bit before we get into talking about some big news with Redwood and Cloverly. Before we get into more of the sustainability conversation, let's level set a bit. Tell us, for the three people that may not know, tell us about Redwood Logistics and what the company does, kind of in a nutshell. Yeah,
I appreciate that. As I look at it, so Redwood is, and I guess as I would describe it, it's really a technology-first supply chain orchestration company. As we look at servicing our customers, it's really about bringing innovation into the world of logistics and helping businesses navigate. And we all know the high demand that they go through on a day-to-day basis. It's interesting, at the end of 2021, Redwood actually celebrated the 20th anniversary as a company. And I would say
20 years in global supply chain tech. That's something to celebrate, right?
Big deal. Yeah. It's been fueled by just tremendous growth. Now as we look at what Redwood does, it's really about a portfolio of services and solutions that offer flexibility for our customers. We look at it in a couple of different core segments: move, manage, and innovate. It's really about digital freight brokerage, flexible freight management, and even a bit of logistics consulting powered by an entire SaaS platform. We roll all that up into a delivery mechanism that we call LPaaS, which is Logistics Platform as a Service. It's been something from a brand perspective that has really connected with our customers and the market that we have. So excited about where we've come from, the history that we have, and really the suite of services that we offer for the market today.
Well said. And I want to go back to where you started with that level setting, the word orchestration. That's one of my favorites. It always brings an image of a conductor, right? A really experienced conductor and a big old orchestra, which is, that's a great analogy for global supply chain, and just having everybody work, all on the same sheet of music and all playing a symphony together, note for note. That is just a great image for how global supply chain should work. Right, John?
Yeah, that's right. What's interesting is in the experiences and engagements that we've had, it's so critical to meet our customers and partners where they're at. We're going to talk sustainability, and we're going to talk about that path here today and focus in on that. But across all services, each shipper, each partner, each customer that we have has a different set of not only current situations that they're really looking to move forward and advance, but then also goals and where they want to go. We feel that meeting them where they are and being able to help in all of those different suites of services and really push the technology portion of not just that individual transactional component, but how we can digitize together means a lot.
Digitizing together. I love it. Okay, let me take a couple quick comments. Kanchan is tuned in via LinkedIn. Great to have you back from India. Looking forward to your perspective here today. Look at Stephen is right on the money. He's sharing the URL and he's helping us connect and all digitize together. So Stephen, appreciate that. Dr. Rhonda's back with us 3 times this week. Rhonda, it's so good to have you with us. She, by the way, John, is also in Arizona. She is a great person to follow on social, always out there hiking in that beautiful landscape y'all have out there.
Yeah.
Jane, I think, really appreciated the fact that Clay was asking us about talking beer. Jane, don't you know we got to talk beer? It's part of how we deal with global supply chain. All right, so let's keep driving here. What I want to get into next is Redwood. And by the way, congrats again on 20 years. That's a great accomplishment, especially all the expansion, the growth, how in many ways you're changing how business is done, which you kind of alluded to a couple times. Recently, you've announced a big partnership with Cloverly, right? So tell us about this big development, how it all works, and perhaps most importantly, what it means for the market, John.
Yeah, we are. I appreciate you bringing it up. We're extremely excited about what this means. So at Redwood, we offer a full suite of solutions in this category, and adding this integration and really the extended capabilities with Cloverly, it's just another catalyst for helping our customers to be able to measure and deliver really around their sustainability goals at the highest level at Redwood. And our customers may see this and know this a little bit more. It's about the Hyperion solution, which is that all-encompassing solution to sustainability and walking that path of really developing a program with our customers to deliver on sustainability goals. If we break that down, the Hyperion segment, there's really kind of 4 key areas. So all starts with visibility, and that's getting complete transparency into freight emissions across all modes and across all shipments, not just the Redwood ones specifically, but giving a footprint and a platform that can drive that insight to establish visibility, and then looking for options to be able to reduce the carbon footprint that they actually have.
So kind of assessing the whole enterprise there.
It's exactly right. And what's interesting is, and we'll get into this, I'm sure, a little bit, is as folks get visibility, there's so many options at their disposal when they work with the right partners. There's not only about what we'll talk about from the offset component of it, but there's also creativity around working with partners, selecting the right carriers, looking for consolidation opportunities, modal selection, and understanding goals and how they actually align both sustainability to the overall OKRs for a company. All that option when you actually partner with the right folks, we believe it to be Redwood, gives that plan and that playbook for folks to really execute, kind of take that forward. And really in that third, sorry, go ahead.
And that's really critical so that you can measure your progress, all right, and make sure you're actually making progress, right, John?
It is. It's really about planning the work and working the plan. If you don't know what you're measuring, you don't know where you want to go. It's difficult to know is the impact that we're spending time, effort, energy, and resources on actually making the impact, and is it the right impact? Because there's a lot of activities that you can actually choose, and being able to get that visibility and then align on what path makes the most sense, short term, medium term, and long term, becomes part of that overall established goal set, and the ability to kind of take those right next steps.
My 7th grade social studies teacher just made an appearance with that cliche you shared, making the plan and working the plan.
Yeah.
So, all right. So visibility, what was the second one again, John, as we were laying out the 4-point plan?
It's really about targeting reduction.
Okay.
Identifying paths and different options and solutions to plan reduction.
Okay.
That third one's about offset. And this is really where the partnership with Cloverly comes in, is not only about providing access and driving acceleration to how to measure, create visibility, but then say, what do I do with it? One of the biggest components to being able to take that next step is, how do I actually offset it? How do I partner with folks that have a marketplace that can really drive sustainable projects for us to create offset? And the partnership with Cloverly is really that acceleration. It gives access to a marketplace. It's verified projects where shippers can really access direct carbon credits and make that exchange. Ultimately, Cloverly's API calculates in real time the quality of the carbon emissions that a shipment creates, and then takes that next step to be able to deliver a mechanism to be able to offset it as well.
Okay.
That last part from a program perspective is really about reporting and integration. The interesting piece about sustainability is the segmentation that can be created and how folks look to execute that larger goal and that larger plan, and then the myriad of options and solutions that we talked about, but really bringing it in. And as we mentioned, how do you measure it? How do you actually bring that all together? Having access to be able to view it, share those successes internally with the teams that are now created around sustainability becomes just as paramount to the actual activity that's being done. When you combine the approach that Redwood is using in the overall Hyperion, integrate that with platforms like RedwoodConnect, to be able to integrate the information between all those parties, it really becomes a powerful tool.
On that last one, reporting and integration, two of when it comes to sustainability, one of the biggest challenges and weaknesses is that reporting and that transparency, and really, are you making progress? Going back to a point John made earlier. And then secondly, with all the different technologies out there, integration just in general, sustainability and beyond, integration is an ongoing challenge. For every supply chain practitioner, especially as you're implementing new technologies that maybe certain members of the team are a bit unfamiliar with. So I love that 4-step plan. Let me take a couple quick comments, John. And folks, I want to hear from you. Let us know what you're hearing, your take on what John is sharing, or your thoughts in general when it comes to sustainability in supply chain. Backing up a little bit here, we have got Alexander is tuned in via LinkedIn. Hey, let us know where you're tuned in from. Sometimes the flag and via LinkedIn, the emojis don't always translate via comments. So let us know where you're tuned in from. Great to have you here. Russ, great to have you back. I've enjoyed your comments on our previous live streams, tuned in via LinkedIn from London. John, ever been to London?
I have actually. I took an expat assignment for 2 years and lived in Glasgow, Scotland. So
nice.
London was a frequent. I didn't want to get into that in terms of our earlier conversation, but there's plenty of options out there as well.
Well, you say Scotland. You're quite the athlete. I bet you got in a couple nice rounds of golf while you were there.
I got a few, and also in the midst of those rounds, frustrated a few caddies as well. So apparently, my game and the courses don't exactly mix out there.
Hey, kindred spirits, John. Kindred spirits. All right, Melanie, great to have you here with us via LinkedIn, weighing in on a couple different things, focusing on Scope 3 in her new role. Problem with calculating CO2 is the internal data of shipping terms, modes, country of origin, all that good stuff. Little visibility on that. Excellent point, Melanie. We were just talking about that a second ago. It's great to have you here. Looking forward to your perspective. Dr. Rhonda, thank you. I thought yesterday's session with Mike Griswold and Gartner was a great one. Murphy's Law was with us again, but hey, it's great to have Mike at least in with you audibly, even if you can't always have 3D, 4D, John. Sometimes that happens.
Right.
Mohammed tuned in from Oman via LinkedIn. Great to see you here, Mohammed. Let us know what you're thinking as we tackle sustainability and supply chain visibility and how the two mesh together so critically. And Hugh, great to have you back. Great. I bet your work has taken you everywhere but some of our live streams. So great to have you here. Always an interesting broadcast. Okay. Y'all keep weighing in. We're going to try to get to as many of these as we can. I think, John, we might just have the one and only Greg E.B. White back with us. Let's swoosh Greg in if we can.
All right.
Hey, Greg.
I don't know what to do with my hands.
Oh, man. That
was a wild ride, Scott, courtesy of your local cable company. So we asked for an upgrade to gig speed. I think they just sent it. So don't schedule it.
That's right.
It just comes. So we'll see. Any faster?
I think you're better. You're better, and it's great to have you back. I'll tell you, we've tackled a lot on the front end thus far with John.
What I missed, John.
John, give us the whole thing in 30 seconds.
30 second rundown.
Yeah. A good old Chris Berman throwback. We just dove into Greg, Redwood's fascinating partnership with Cloverly and what it means for the market. John kind of took us through a four item framework there. And, John, really quick, I'm going to get back to talking sustainability with you in just a second. But Greg, you're familiar with Cloverly. Weigh in on what the company is doing and maybe what you see between Redwood and Cloverly here.
Yeah, I think what's great about what Redwood is doing with Cloverly is it's a third-party validation of the goodness that you're doing. John, you mentioned in the pre-show that a lot of companies are building their own reporting mechanism, right? There's a lot of potential for self-interest there. I think long-term, you've done the right thing because I think long-term the industry won't accept self-certification, right? Yeah. PhD, by the way, just determined that myself.
Yeah.
So I think that's the important thing to do. And what Cloverly is doing, John probably shared some of this, is finding carbon offsets. And that is the most difficult part of the entire process, is to find them. So they're consolidating all the people that are creating these carbon offsets by planting trees and eliminating waste and all of these other things, and then giving people a central place to go to be able to offer these. I've actually... I don't know exactly what e-commerce site, but I was talking to Jason Rubottom, the CEO of Cloverly, the other day, and he said, yeah, when you bought that 16 cent or whatever it was, 25 cent for a consumer carbon offset, that went through us. So I think that's, that enablement so that we can all contribute like we all want to is really powerful.
Coincidental, I'll tell you, it's amazing how things work. The world gets a lot smaller. John, the offsetting was number 3 in terms of the 4-point framework. Comment on that really quick, and then we're going to move into sustainability programs. Yeah, it's difficult to find the different ways to offset, which is what Greg was just sharing, right, John?
Yeah, it is, and I think one of the key parts is the visibility aspect of it. When you think about sustainability programs, the first thing that folks think about is, here's my goals. And then as they start to break down how to get to those goals, they just think, oh my goodness, this is really complex. Where do I even start? What do I do first? Really what we're looking at doing is bringing together this information and data that has to do with all the logistics movements across, and integrating that whole cycle of opportunity to not only get visibility to it, then look for options to be able to reduce it and then also offset it. And that really completes that cycle and provides a plan for folks to say, I have the goal. Here's how I can actually take a first step to be able to get there. Partnerships like this become so critical in being able to round that out. Because as folks look at a program, they say, if I can only get to here, well, then where do I go next? And how do I invest in that next? And Greg, to your point, is what I'm doing going to be validated by external parties and other components? Because I don't want to take those steps without actually having that right understanding. And what does that investment mean? This really creates that circle of influence and really closes the chapter and helps to really accelerate the programs and where they go.
Yeah, I agree. And your team, as it turns out, John, I'm guessing, have day jobs. So also finding offsets, right, and consolidating all of those into usable information is, a usable network is that's an additional part of your job or business that you don't really want to have a division for.
That's right.
So it provides a lot of leverage from that standpoint.
Really quick, Hugh is tuned in now from North Carolina. You relocated from Vermont. Hugh, getting closer to Atlanta, our home base. And yes, swoosh is a technical term, highly technical term here in industry. All right. So John, you just touched on those initial steps of getting started. How can, the easiest way to get started for a shipper adopting a sustainability program. Anything else you want to add there to folks maybe listening and kind of asking themselves, where do I get started? How can we do this the easy way? John, anything else to add?
Yeah, look, it's a big focus for what we're doing here at Redwood and also in the partnerships. And that's really apparent in terms of the attention and investment that we're making here. We want it to be something that creates that path for our customers to be able to really drive change. We talked a lot about this, and it's probably it'll be the quote unquote easy button for folks as they come out of this, but it all starts with visibility. Getting data that's actionable, understanding what that data actually means so you can actually have a starting point is so critical. And then being able to integrate that into whatever program plan that is critical, having that footprint and understanding that, it's the most digestible way to really get buy-in for whatever program and options that you want. And then partnering with folks like Redwood that have that optionality that can actually establish different ways, leveraging that data, not only about the offset, but actually in your logistics and supply chain. I think there's a really unique mix there. So
you mentioned the word buy-in. Let's talk about that for a second, because talk about the importance of really clear, transparent sustainability goals from all parties that may, that's part of the supply chain ecosystem.
Yeah. There's nothing more important. There's absolutely nothing more important, right? Having clarity around goals for not only the internal organization, but how partners have an influence into that. How far you can actually go and where that data actually looks. We talked about it a little bit earlier. If we don't know what good looks like, we don't know where we want to go. How do we know when we get there?
Right.
And if we are ahead of our goal or if we even surpassed it, and where do we go next? If we claim to be making progress as a partnership, how do you measure it? And what are the participants? What can they bring to the table to be a part of that? And what's interesting is if you think about in supply chain, we're constantly balancing the day-to-day demands with this overarching many of OKRs and goals that are associated to it. I remember having a conversation with a supply chain director. This was not about sustainability, but it was just asking, hey, how did you build your supply chain? How did you locate things? And he goes, frankly, it was a series of continued asks and demands that just kept piling on it. To my team's credit, we just kept delivering. And that's what you see today. But now that we have the data, now we want to go back and actually take the right steps to create resilience and actually apply it. Same thing as in sustainability. You got to get a footprint for where you actually stand and then have a goal to be able to say, here's where we want to go. Those two things come hand in hand, right? Just having the goal without that information or having all the information, understanding those goals, those two things really need to pull together to be effective.
All right. So Greg, I'm going to get you to weigh in. John covered a lot there and offered a lot of, I think, interesting insights into some of the behind the scenes conversations. Greg, your take.
Yeah, I think, John, you speak to a common conflict that people have. They've got all this data and they have no idea what to do with it, right? We talk about big data. Sometimes it's really just medium data. It's not that big, but whatever. Nonetheless, it's more data than most people have had in their history, and they're trying to find a job for it. I think working back from the goals, what do we want to accomplish? How does what segment of data that we have fit into that? This is useful. This isn't useful for the goal, maybe useful for another goal. So I think starting with those goals and working back into how to apply the data is the absolute right way to go.
Well said. All right, let me share a couple quick comments, and John, we're gonna dive a little bit deeper into what Redwood offers, kind of a competitive advantage. Clay, I'm with you. Thanks for being here. Old diesel, because the engine always never stops. John, so great to see everybody's viewership numbers here today. Folks do care about sustainability, and we've got to. right? We have a responsibility as an industry. Or they all came to see John Rattay. Clay, that factors in as well, I believe. Byron, great to see you here via Texas. Enjoyed your comments yesterday. The one and only Kim Winter from Dubai is here with us. Sustainability, he says, to the fore here as he's emceeing the first GCCU. That's a big old acronym. The ESG event, October 20th. So Kim, great to see you here. And finally, one last comment. And James, I see your question. We'll try to get to that question a little later on. But CM says, true. What does good look like? The simple questions are the best questions. So well said, CM. Okay. So John, and by the way, Greg, I wrote down that medium data. I'm going to completely steal that from you soon.
Well, John, okay, then if you're going to do that, then I have to confess that I stole it from the CEO of a company that I work with. I talked to yesterday. So
I love it. All right. So John, Redwood is a unique company,
yep.
Especially to have carbon emission software and serve as a logistics service provider. Talk about that competitive edge that everyone's looking for. New competitive edge, old competitive edge, you name it. Talk about what Redwood offers there.
Yeah, we believe it's a strong competitive advantage, and it's really backed up by the interactions that we've had with both new prospects and current customers in terms of where they want to go. As the macro environment really thinks about being greener, there's a lot of folks that, from a supply chain perspective, firmly believe we have an opportunity to lead the way. It seems complex, and we're really looking to change that. And a lot of what we talked about today builds the foundation for those partnerships to take those right steps. And really, if you look at the overall perspective of Redwood in that LPAS, it's about tying together the digital and the physical footprint and the aspects of what supply chain actually means in all sorts of elements, including sustainability, and allow customers to have access to that information in an open ecosystem to be able to make sure that we're delivering associated with them to really be an extension of what they're looking to do. In addition to what we're talking about here about data, Redwood is active in formalizing and really accelerating a current managed services offering that we're coining Redwood Eco Advisory umbrella that will fit under this Hyperion, that also will guide shippers in their supply chain goals and look for those efficiencies that can be measurable, not only in the emission side, but also look to reduce freight costs as part of it. It doesn't need, as we look at it, it doesn't need to be a one or the other. By leveraging that information and data, and with this Eco Advisory, something that we believe can really go hand in hand.
Yep. Gosh, so much to dive into, and we're about halfway through our conversation. Greg, when it comes to competitive advantage, right, and what John shared there, what really stood out to your ears?
Well, the rule of the day for sustainability or supply chain transparency or visibility or whatever you want to call it is transparency, is being able to see into and through your supply chain to understand who's performing well, regardless of what the metric is, who isn't, right? Who's a good actor, who ain't, and understand who you do business with and be able to make judgments, not just within your four walls, because now public companies, they're responsible for the sustainability efforts of not just themselves, but also everyone that they do business with. Mm-hmm. And they have to have both visibility into it and a plan, and then rate their execution against that plan to, as they report to the SEC, to FINRA and others, so that people can establish the risk that is apparent or is present in their supply chain. Finally, right? We got what we asked for, guys. Finally, the world knows what supply chain is, knows how important it is to the business. But now we're going to have to establish the transparency that they have in sales and that they have in marketing and that they have in finance and other core aspects of the business. So it's critical to have initiatives like this to be able to understand where you stand.
I'd add on, and it probably falls into the bucket of a competitive advantage, but just to layer onto that point, Greg, is when we think about the approach and what we've put together, it's really based on technology. We have a platform solution called RedwoodConnect. It's an integration platform that's built for logistics teams, and it's really about bringing together disparate systems, carriers, solutions, applications, and helping that information streamline in between. And what you think about, what you talk about there is taking this information from supply chain and integrating that into an overall company's perspective becomes so critical. And that integration is really a competitive advantage, because creating individual silos as you execute all of these becomes just another operational pillar that doesn't share in that macro and understand from the goal is how do we adjust more appropriately, what's moving further than we think and not. We believe that to be a real competitive advantage around the integration, being able to take this data, complete the cycle that we talk about, and really push that back and integrate that back into a company system.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I want to share a couple comments here. Mohib is with us from the air capital of the world, Wichita, Kansas. Great to see you, Mohib. And T Squared.
About time for him to get back to class. Right?
That's right. T Squared, who holds down the Fort Force on YouTube, says this is good nourishment in the parlance and digging the prize. T Squared came up with a trivia answer not too long ago. And
we got it.
Finally, yes, our prize supply chain was letting us down a little bit, but we made that connection. Okay, so John, Redwood, quite an innovative 20 years to date, and it sounds like the next 20 is going to be as innovative, looking to change the game and bolt on more and more services as you expand the competitive advantage that the company offers your customers. So break out your 8-ball, right? The old toy that we played with in the 80s, or your crystal ball if yours is still working. I don't know. Mine has really been shaky. What do the next few years look like when it comes to freight emissions management, John?
It's a great question. I think there's a couple of things that come to my mind. And Greg, you hit on it before. I think customer demand will increase. I think the insight and transparency, the direct discussions that folks will have, whether it's B2B, B2C, it's going to increase, and that's going to really create an opportunity for companies to really move ahead. I think that one comes to my mind first. Greg, you mentioned this before. We're seeing more regulations that are coming up. So call that carrot and a stick, maybe the balance between those two. But change is definitely coming. Investment is coming, and I think in that investment, it's going to be interesting. We saw this in supply chain earlier. We're now seeing C-level folks with supply chain titles because they're now getting a seat at the table in the strategy. And sustainability, I think, is very soon, if not already, part of those conversations. Is going to continue to get more and more investment. You see people hired in to top level organizations. So I think all of those things combined is really going to create an environment that we're going to see a lot of change. And you're already seeing companies come out and put out those lofty goals about being net neutral and net zero in 10, 15, 20 years and starting to move forward.
It's certainly better to digitize together with your partners, borrowing your phrase from earlier. And I tell you, in these days, ever more, and it'll be even more important moving forward. But that integration, orchestration piece, as we're leveraging a wide array of technologies to make supply chain happen, absolutely critical. And Greg, that's where before we offer up a resource from John and the Redwood team, weigh in on what you just heard there from John and the critical elements that will be part of the next 20 years that the Redwood team will be experiencing.
Yeah, the whole world will be experiencing, right? I mean, I think that which is I would say jump in now while all this integration, while all this transparency is a competitive advantage, because it will become table stakes in the very near future. As the regulations come in, as consumers demand it more and more, you're either going to have it or be left out. So while you can still get some competitive advantage from it, do it. And then you're that much farther ahead of the game in terms of maturity curve when it becomes table stakes, which it inevitably will. All of these kind of developments eventually do. So there's a very concise window in which you can actually take advantage and actually make profit from it. And then you're avoiding being left out in the cold in 5 to 10 years, whenever this just becomes part of the game.
First mover or early mover advantage in many ways, Greg. Okay. Mohib's been busy with research. That's why he's been missing here. Well, hey, it's great that you snuck in and took this conversation and these great thoughts and POV from John and the Redwood team. And yes, Clay, although I stole that John heavily influenced my poetry, certainly better to digitize together. Almost flows right off the tongue.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So, John, we definitely there's a lot of different resources as you've already laid out and a lot we can't get to here today that the Redwood team has. We definitely want to drop the sustainability kind of landing page for folks to learn more specifically about that topic and what Redwood's doing. So team, Catherine, Amanda, if we can drop that in the comments, that'd be good. And as we start to kind of come down the home stretch here, I want to shift gears a little bit, John, and bring something up that we've talked about here quite a bit, Greg. And that is Redwood's commitment to the veterans community. Yeah. I was really honored to be a part of this Veterans and Logistics event, which I think this was the third year in a row that Redwood has invested in this critical type of programming. Had a blast. Steve Rose was my kind of MC partner. Yeah. Steve is like the John Wayne of supply chain. I love it. He really is no nonsense. He shared some great experiences from his time transitioning as a Marine veteran into supply chain, and kind of how he approached that. We had a variety of great speakers, but from what you have been able to see or be a part of or hear the Redwood team talk about, any key takeaways from that event just a week or two ago?
Yeah, that event was meaningful for me, and appreciate you being a part of it and working with our folks. It's great to hear from Steve and Carlos. And one of the big things that came out for me was just the importance of resources. They talked a lot about resources that are available to them in the short term, whether it be internally at certain companies and where the position is, and then also externally. How much access to data and information that's out there. I thought that was just an incredible message, and one that even kind of dove into me as well. And it's there's a ton of investment that's been done by Redwood. It's something that Redwood University, I think Steve brought up on the time there, and the advancement that's been done, not only just about product knowledge or information about these different categories, move, manage, innovate, or sustainability, but really kind of looking at broadening the horizon and just educating folks. There's so much in this industry to learn. Folks that dive in, that don't ever leave, right? As we all have really grasped that education component, because it's ever changing. It's a lot of fun, and really proud of the Redwood folks for what they've done and where they've invested, and the materials and information they've had. And it was just it was a great session for me.
Yeah. From on behalf of our entire team here, right? I'm an Air Force veteran. We've spent 20 years trying to find ways of helping people avoid some of the transition pitfalls I personally experienced due to a lot of blind spot stuff in the blind spot, and just bad decisions as you're trying to figure out the transition into the private sector. I really admire, and our team admires, companies like Redwood that invest in the veteran experience and the veteran transition. And one other side note, our collaboration with Redwood on that event allowed us to donate a nice donation to Vets to Industry, which is a nonprofit out there helping veterans and military families with all the different unique and common needs that they have. So big thanks from our team to your team, John. Appreciate what you do. Greg, I'm gonna get your take on what John just shared, and of course supporting our veteran and really the unique career opportunity that supply chain and logistics, transportation, all different elements of global supply chain really offers veterans. But really quick, yes, Sam, Redwood does absolutely, deeds not words, support veterans. Sam, Steve Rose is John Wayne in The Longest Day. Great salesperson, incredible person. Thank you, Sam, for that. Master Sergeant.
I was thinking more McClinic, but Longest Day is good also.
It is. Master Sergeant Jeremy During, I think if I got that right, was at the event. And he also shares, this podcast is helping me bridge the language barrier, being a military logistics pro, Loggy, as he says. Hey, appreciate your service. Thanks for being a part. Let us know how we can help. And maybe we'll have a tip or two here right before we wrap. But Greg, weigh in on what John shared, some of his takeaways from the event, and just kind of in general.
Yeah, I think generally veterans are critical to the supply chain, and I think their training is very applicable. There are some bridges we need to cross. First of all, they're very mission oriented, right? Not vision oriented. And I think if we can bridge here's what we're trying to accomplish, boys, girls, to here's the brute force and the intellectual capital that needs to be expended to accomplish it, then I think we can do that. What I see commonly, and I don't know if you guys have seen this too, is it's as hard for a military loggy to relate to how that could relate in the real world. And I think we have to help them understand that. Tell us not just what you did, but what it meant, right? What it accomplished, right? What it supported in terms of a higher purpose. And when they see that, and they see that that's a core part of business that they're not usually exposed to at the execution phase, that helps them contribute even more. But man, the discipline that, my favorite thing that human beings do and that they teach you to do so well in the military is make life and death decisions with insufficient or inaccurate data immediately, right? Yep. And that is such a critical skill in supply chain, because every single disruption, every single surprise, every single blind spot presents an opportunity for a human to engage and do that. And I think that's what makes vets really particularly well suited for logistics and supply chain.
Well said. Very well said. John and Greg bringing it here today. I want to go back before we move forward. This is Harshita, I believe. And Harshita, great to have you here via LinkedIn. Agrees. Great point, Greg. She says 65% of the world economy is committed to becoming carbon neutral by 2050. There's going to be a lot of policy-driven impacts we'll see over the next few years. Well said, Harshita. And thanks for sharing. Thanks for being a part of the conversation here. All right. So, John, let's also talk. Redwood is doing a lot of hiring from what I've seen. That was a big part of the conversation with veterans in logistics. Steve pointed out and invited people to check it out. So talk about, some of the talent you're looking for and, as y'all continue to grow.
Yeah. Culture is such a big thing for us at Redwood. As we look to grow, we want to make sure that we're bringing the right folks that can balance out that execution and vision and really be a part of that, not only from a military perspective, but I think we also have one coming up, women in logistics as well. That diversity of thought, those experiences, so applicable to supply chain in all different areas. And as we look at the opportunity for Redwood and our customers, really where we want to be and where we want to go, it means kind of having that right perspective and the right talent as part of that. I think if you go to our page that is open positions, it probably would print off on a few pages. There's a lot of positions that are out there. And it spans across all different categories and segments, from sales, operations, data and analytics. Technology is this really growing perspective for us in so many of the different sectors. We have a full SaaS division that rolls up in our Innovate group, safety, operations, and so much more. I mean, from a perspective across, there is something for everyone. And we're looking to have great people to continue to provide great service for our customers. So please check it out.
Pages but to our listeners, don't print out all those
print
pages.
It out. Exactly. Just digital pages.
But check it out. We dropped the link. What's that, Greg?
Scroll.
Scroll. That's right. Just scroll.
There you go.
Just scroll. RedwoodLogistics.com. We also included the link dropped in the comments to the sustainability page in particular, but you can use that same link to navigate over to what they're hiring for and check it out. And as I mentioned, because I do like beating a dead horse from time to time, they're very deliberate in hiring veterans and I'll call it not underemploying veterans. That's a big challenge across industry, not just in supply chain, but just in general. So check it out and would love, who knows, maybe you get a conversation needed right around the corner. Okay, so I want to offer.
I'm really enjoying Jeremy's comments in.
Seriously,
don't print it; it wouldn't be sustainable.
This one here, back to Master Sergeant Jeremy During there. That would not be sustainable, right? So just scroll, as Greg suggested. Just scroll. But whatever you do, make sure you lean in and apply. They're hiring a lot of great roles, a lot of great talent. Speaking of
5'8", I didn't know they could stack paper that high.
speaking of poetry a second ago, as Clay shared, it's the supply chain poetry from Ohib there. The optimal models for aggregated distribution and carbon emission are still under development. A lot more hands-on collaborations between academic researchers and corporate practitioners are needed to make the future world a better place to breathe in. Nicely said, Mohib. Now, Steven says, Heidelberg, print it out. That's good.
They're
That
doing a
is
lot
good.
of electronic at Heidelberg now, too. But,
That's
you know,
right.
I don't know if you've ever seen Heidelberg printing press. This is what they used to print when they used to print a lot. Newspapers on. The big 2, 3,
Yeah.
4-story ones, and magazines and things like that. Now they've got every manner of them now. They've acquired more companies. What an impressive machine it is. I used to be in the
Interesting.
printing industry, and Heidelberg was
Primo.
like going to the Super Bowl in printing. Yeah.
I want to offer up one more other comment. And Josh, great to see you from Seattle. I have to get us a weather report today, but knowing which bridges to burn and which ones to cross, that's certainly not just good supply chain know-how. That is global business and beyond know-how. So Josh, good point here. Okay. So John, I tell you, we blink and we're right around near the top of the hour. If I said that correctly, I always get top and bottom hour confused.
Kind of like
John.
headwinds and tailwinds.
Yeah, it's kind of like tailwinds and headwinds.
Just
What does
think
that
of
mean?
the way that the big hand is pointing. Top.
Thank you.
That's how I do
Greg.
it.
Man.
Oh, wait,
Sorry,
for those of you who haven't read a regular clock in your lifetime, they used to have hands that indicated the time.
All right. So you're so right, Greg. And now forevermore, I will get it right. Just think of the analog hands. John, really enjoyed your perspective. Enjoyed the pre-show conversations we had. It's really, I tell you, Redwood is doing some exciting, innovative things. As we all know, the industry and how we do business, so much of it has to change based on not just challenges that have been really made visible these last couple of years, but long-standing challenges and based on the environment and some of the evolutions out there. So appreciate what you and the Redwood team is doing. How can folks connect with you and the Redwood team, John?
Yeah, as always, head to our website. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I think you posted it here earlier. I'd love to chat, and not just about sustainability, but all supply chain technology initiatives, experiences. Just enjoy having these types of conversations and being a part of it.
Wonderful. Well, we appreciate your time here today. Look forward to having you back, especially as y'all embark upon the next 20 years. Big thanks to John Rattay, Chief Commercial Officer with Redwood Logistics. Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
All right, Greg, we're gonna wrap up quickly.
We're gonna talk about John like he's not here, because
that's right,
he's not.
Your while we got you, your big takeaway from what John shared here today that folks got to leave here with.
Yeah, the biggest takeaway is that everyone has to contribute to the sustainability initiative, and I think Redwood has done a stellar job of doing that, both with their own internal technologies and processes and principles, but also in reaching out into the marketplace. Cloverly is a great example, and I'm sure they have others, where they are finding specialists in the area to make sure that they're doing the best they can in sustainability. You can't do it just inside your four walls, and you can't do it supply chain sustainability, or even just supply chain transparency just inside your four walls. You have to do it with, and maybe even sometimes for, the rest of your trading partners, because some of them may not be able to stand alone.
That's right. Well, hey, y'all kick the tires on the Redwood team and all that they offer that John walked through here today. It's a great way to explore increasing your competitive advantage and winning here in the global obstacle course that is supply chain right now. Make sure you check out the resources we drop. Connect with John and the team. Again, big thanks to Redwood for supporting our veterans community. Okay, folks, on behalf of Greg and the whole Supply Chain Now team, first off, big thanks to all the folks that showed up in the comments. I know we couldn't get to all of them. Some of the questions we got to, hopefully they can connect with the Redwood team maybe after today's show. But Greg, always a pleasure doing these conversations with you. We got to challenge folks, right? Not just deeds, not words. It's all about the actions you take. And with that said, Scott Luton challenging everyone, all of our listeners, to do good, to give forward, and to be the change that's needed. And on that note, we'll see you next time right back here at Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.